The salvage beacon screamed across 7 solar systems, its digital distress call echoing through the void like a wounded animal's cry. The signal originated from the edge of the Kepler 442 system, where something massive drifted in the darkness between planets. Ships from 12 different species had already turned away after preliminary scans revealed the truth about what waited there. It was a Voidrender-class destroyer, one of the legendary warships of the extinct Zephyrian Empire. The massive vessel stretched nearly 3 kilometers from bow to stern, its hull a twisted maze of crystalline armor plates and biomechanical components that defied conventional understanding. Most terrifying of all, it was still partially alive. Captain Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the human salvage vessel, tenacious, studying the long-range scans with growing fascination rather than fear. Around her, the mixed-species crew exchanged nervous glances and whispered prayers in languages she couldn't understand. The Voidrender hung motionless against the star field, its organic components pulsing with a sickly green bioluminescence that made even veteran spacers uncomfortable. "Captain, we should follow the others," urged her Altarian first officer, his blue-scaled hands trembling as he manipulated the sensor controls. The Galactic Salvage Union has already classified this wreck as a Category 5 hazard. The risk assessment shows a 97% chance of total crew loss. Sarah brushed a strand of brown hair from her eyes and smiled in that particular way that made her crew both admire and fear her judgment. At 34, she had already survived more deep space disasters than most captains saw in entire careers. Her reputation for tackling impossible salvage operations had earned her both wealth and a certain notoriety among the galactic community. "Yethera, what's our current debt situation?" she asked, turning to her Centaurian navigator. The insectoid being clicked her mandibles nervously. 17 million credits, Captain. The reactor overhaul on Proxima Station cost more than projected. We need a significant score or the bank will seize the ship. Sarah nodded thoughtfully. The Voidrender represented more than just another salvage job. Zephyrian technology was legendary throughout the galaxy, their biomechanical engineering so advanced that even fragments of their ship sold for astronomical sums. A single intact Voidrender could set her crew up for life, assuming they could somehow extract its treasures without becoming casualties themselves. "Run a deep scan of the engineering section," she ordered. "I want to know what we're dealing with." The sensor array hummed to life, penetrating the alien vessel's hull with focused tachyon beams. What they found defied explanation. The ship's engineering section was a nightmarish fusion of living tissue and crystalline machinery, its biomechanical system still functioning after centuries of drift through space. Organic conduits pulsed with unknown energies, while crystalline matrices processed data through neural pathways that seemed to think independently. "Captain, the readings are impossible," reported her human engineer, Marcus Webb. "The ship's consciousness appears to be dormant but not dead. Its immune systems are still active, which explains why every other salvage crew has fled. The vessel literally fights back against intruders." Sarah studied the detailed scans, her engineering background helping her interpret the complex readings. She had studied Zephyrian technology at the Terran Engineering Academy, one of the few humans to ever gain access to the classified research files. The Zephyrians had created ships that were part machine, part living organism, capable of self-repair and adaptation that made them nearly indestructible. "The biomechanical integration is incredible," she murmured, highlighting specific sections of the scan. "Look at these neural pathways. The ship isn't just controlled by an AI, it is an AI merged completely with its biological components. And these power readings suggest the main reactor is still operational, just cycling at minimal output." Her crew gathered around the holographic display, their various species united in their shared apprehension. The Voidrender's interior was a labyrinth of organic corridors and crystalline chambers, its layout shifting subtly as the ship's living systems adapted to changing conditions. Attempting to navigate such an environment would be like performing surgery on a patient that could fight back. "The access points here and here show signs of recent activity," Sarah continued, pointing to sections where other salvage crews had attempted entry. Each team made it less than 50 meters before retreating. The ship's defensive systems activated, sealing corridors and flooding sections with bioelectric discharges. Marcus pulled up the casualty reports from previous attempts. 3 crews reported total system failures when they tried to interface with Zephyrian technology. 2 more lost team members to what they described as neural feedback loops that left their engineers catatonic. The Rigelian Salvage Consortium sent their best specialists and they couldn't even penetrate the outer hull. Sarah nodded grimly. She understood why every other crew had turned away. The Voidrender wasn't just a ship. It was a sleeping giant with the power to defend itself against any perceived threat. Its biomechanical systems could adapt to countermeasures, learning from each intrusion attempt and developing new defenses. Approaching it would require more than conventional salvage techniques. "What about the radiation levels?" asked Krell, her draconian security chief. "Surprisingly low," Marcus replied. The biomechanical systems seem to absorb and process most forms of harmful radiation. But there's something else, energy signatures that don't match any known technology. The ship appears to be powered by something beyond conventional fusion or antimatter reactors. Sarah felt her pulse quicken. Unknown energy technology from the Zephyrian Empire could revolutionize galactic civilization. Such a discovery would be worth far more than the ship's salvage value. It could reshape the balance of power among the major species. "Captain, with respect, this mission is suicide," her first officer stated flatly. "No human has ever successfully interfaced with active Zephyrian technology. The biomechanical integration is designed to be incompatible with most galactic species' neural patterns." Sarah turned away from the display and faced her crew. They looked at her with a mixture of loyalty and fear, waiting for her decision. She could order them to retreat, find easier salvage opportunities, and slowly watch their debt consume everything they had worked for. Or she could take the greatest risk of her career and attempt something no one else had dared. "I've made my decision," she announced, her voice carrying the confidence that had kept her crew together through countless dangerous missions. "We're going aboard that ship. But we're not going in blind, and we're not going in unprepared. I want full environmental suits with isolated power systems, neural dampening fields, and emergency teleportation beacons. If that ship wants to fight us, we'll give it a battle it won't forget." The crew exchanged glances, recognizing the determination in their captain's voice. They had followed Sarah Chen through asteroid fields and hostile space, trusting her judgment even when logic suggested retreat. Now she was asking them to board a ship that had defeated every previous attempt at salvage. "Prepare the shuttle," Sarah ordered. "We're going to wake up a legend." The shuttle Persistence approached the Voidrender with careful precision, its pilot maintaining maximum distance while Sarah studied the alien vessel through enhanced sensors. Up close, the Zephyrian destroyer was even more imposing than the long-range scans had suggested. Its hull rippled with organic patterns that seemed to shift and flow like living skin, while crystalline protrusions jutted from its surface like technological tumors. "Captain, I'm detecting movement within the ship's superstructure," reported Marcus from his portable engineering station. "The biomechanical systems are definitely responding to our presence. Heart rate increasing, if you can call it that." Sarah nodded, watching as bioluminescent veins pulsed more rapidly across the vessel's exterior. The ship was waking up, its dormant consciousness stirring after centuries of sleep. She could almost feel its attention focusing on their small shuttle, like a predator becoming aware of prey entering its territory. "Structural integrity appears sound," she observed, noting how the hull plates had sealed minor breaches with what looked like scar tissue. "The self-repair systems are remarkable. After all this time drifting in space, it's still maintaining basic functions." Her crew remained silent, each lost in their own thoughts about what awaited them inside. They had faced dangerous salvage operations before, but never anything that could think and react to their presence. The Voidrender represented a new category of challenge entirely. "There," Sarah pointed to a section where the hull showed signs of forced entry. "That's where the Rigelian team tried to break through. Look at how the ship responded." The metal around the breach had grown into complex geometric patterns, creating a barrier that was stronger than the original hull. Crystalline formations sprouted from the wound like antibodies responding to infection, sealing the opening with materials that glowed faintly in the darkness. "It's learning," Marcus muttered. "Each intrusion attempt teaches it how to better defend itself. By now it probably has countermeasures for every conventional boarding technique." Sarah smiled grimly. "Then we'll have to be unconventional." She guided the shuttle along the destroyer's length, searching for an entry point that previous crews might have overlooked. The Voidrender's design was unlike anything in current galactic fleets, its architecture following principles that seemed to blend engineering with organic growth patterns. Traditional docking ports were replaced by iris-like openings that could dilate or contract based on the ship's needs. "Captain, there's something odd about this section," Marcus called out, highlighting an area near what appeared to be the ship's engineering core. "The biomechanical integration is different here. Less organic, more traditional machinery. It might be a maintenance access point that the ship's immune system considers less vital." Sarah studied the readings carefully. The area Marcus had identified showed lower levels of biological activity, suggesting it might not trigger the same defensive responses that had defeated other boarding attempts. It was still incredibly dangerous, but it offered their best chance of actually getting inside the vessel. "Can you tell what's beyond that access point?" she asked. "Based on the structural scans, it should lead to a secondary engineering bay. From there, we might be able to reach the main reactor chamber without triggering the ship's primary defense systems." Sarah made her decision. "Take us in, but slowly. I don't want to startle our sleeping giant any more than necessary." The shuttle moved carefully toward the identified access point, its sensors continuously monitoring the Void Render's responses. The bioluminescent patterns across the ship's hull continued to pulse, but they didn't intensify as the smaller vessel approached. Perhaps the ship's consciousness was still too drowsy to recognize the threat. Or maybe it was simply curious about these new intruders. "I'm detecting an atmospheric barrier beyond the access port," Marcus reported. "The ship is maintaining internal pressure even in damaged sections. That's good news for us. We won't need to worry about vacuum exposure once we're inside." Sarah felt a mixture of excitement and apprehension as they drew closer to the alien vessel. Every instinct told her this was madness, that no human should attempt to board a ship designed by a species that had mastered biomechanical integration thousands of years before humanity had even left Earth. Yet, something about the challenge called to her, the same drive that had led her to pursue the most dangerous salvage operations in known space. "Docking sequence initiated," she announced, engaging the shuttle's magnetic clamps. "Remember, once we're aboard, we move quickly but carefully. No sudden movements, no unnecessary risks. This ship has already killed more experienced crews than ours." The clamps engaged with a soft metallic clunk, and Sarah felt the shuttle shudder slightly as the Void Render's hull adjusted to accommodate the new attachment. For a moment, the alien ship's bioluminescence flared brighter, and she held her breath, waiting to see if they had triggered some defensive response. Nothing happened. The light patterns returned to their previous rhythm, and the hull remained stable beneath their feet. "Atmospheric readings are good," Marcus reported. "Oxygen-nitrogen mix. Slightly higher CO2 than we're used to, but well within acceptable parameters. Temperature is warm, about 30 degrees Celsius. The ship is definitely maintaining life support." Sarah began suiting up in her specialized environmental gear, designed specifically for boarding operations involving unknown alien technology. The suit included neural dampening fields to protect against biomechanical interfaces that might try to establish unauthorized connections with her nervous system, as well as emergency teleportation beacons that could extract her from danger in seconds. "Final equipment check," she ordered. "I want redundant backups on everything. If this ship decides it doesn't like us, we may not get a second chance to retreat." Her crew ran through their preparations with practiced efficiency. Each team member carried specialized tools for dealing with Zephyrian technology, from bioharmonic resonators to crystalline interface adapters. They had studied every available piece of intelligence about the extinct empire's engineering methods, preparing for challenges that might not have been encountered by previous boarding parties. "Captain, are you sure about this?" asked her first officer over the communications link. "The shuttle's sensors are detecting increasing neural activity within the ship. It's definitely becoming more aware of our presence." Sarah paused at the airlock, considering the question. She could still order a retreat, find some other way to deal with their financial problems, and live to fight another day. But the Void Render represented more than just money. It was a chance to unlock secrets that could benefit all of galactic civilization. "I'm sure," she replied firmly. "We didn't come this far to turn back at the first sign of danger. Besides, someone has to be the first to successfully board one of these ships. Might as well be us." She activated the cutting laser, beginning to slice through the access port's outer barrier. The beam carved through the alien metal with surprising ease, suggesting that this section was indeed less heavily defended than the primary hull. As the circle of heated metal fell away, Sarah caught her first glimpse of the Void Render's interior. The passage beyond was a tunnel of living metal and crystalline formations, its walls pulsing with the same bioluminescent patterns that decorated the ship's exterior. Organic conduits snaked through the ceiling, carrying unknown fluids that glowed with their own inner light. The air that flowed out carried strange scents, ozone and copper, with an underlying organic musk that spoke of living systems. Biomechanical integration is complete in this section, Marcus observed, scanning the tunnel with portable sensors. The ship isn't just alive, it's actively thinking. Neural pathways in the walls are processing information, probably analyzing our presence. Sarah stepped through the breach and into the alien vessel, her boots making soft contact with a floor that felt more like cartilage than metal. The walls around her pulsed gently, and she could swear she felt the ship's attention focusing on her presence like a massive eye opening in the darkness. "We're inside," she reported to her shuttle crew. "Beginning primary survey now. If you don't hear from us in 2 hours, initiate emergency protocols and report our status to the Galactic Salvage Union." The tunnel stretched ahead into darkness, its organic curves leading deeper into the heart of the sleeping giant. Sarah activated her suit's illumination systems and began moving forward, each step taking her further into a realm where the boundaries between technology and life had been erased entirely. Behind her, the access port began to heal itself, crystalline growth slowly sealing the breach they had created. The ship was closing the wound, trapping them inside its living corridors. The corridor stretched before them like the throat of some enormous beast, its walls rippling with patterns of light that seemed to follow their movement. Sarah led her small team deeper into the void render, her helmet sensors working overtime to map the constantly shifting architecture around them. The ship was definitely alive, its biomechanical systems adapting to their presence with an intelligence that made her skin crawl. "Captain, the neural activity is intensifying," Marcus whispered, his voice tight with concentration as he monitored his portable scanners. "It's like the ship is trying to understand what we are. The pattern suggests curiosity rather than hostility, but that could change quickly." Sarah nodded, keeping her movements slow and deliberate. The floor beneath her feet felt warm and slightly yielding, more like walking on living tissue than traditional ship decking. Organic conduits snaked overhead, carrying bioluminescent fluids that pulsed in rhythm with what might have been the vessel's heartbeat. "Stay calm," she advised her team. "We knew this wouldn't be like any normal salvage operation. The ship is reacting to us, but it hasn't activated any obvious defensive systems yet. Let's not give it a reason to start." They reached a junction where the corridor split into 3 different passages, each leading deeper into the ship's interior. The walls here were covered in crystalline formations that resembled neural networks, their surfaces flickering with data streams that moved too quickly for human comprehension. Sarah could feel the weight of the ship's attention pressing down on them, like being observed by something vast and alien. "Which way, Captain?" asked Krell, her security chief. The Draconians' usually steady nerves were clearly being tested by their surroundings. Sarah consulted her scanner, trying to correlate their position with the external structural analysis they had performed. "The passage on the right should lead toward the engineering section. That's where we'll find the most valuable technology, assuming we can reach it without triggering the ship's immune system." As they moved into the right-hand corridor, the bioluminescent patterns in the walls began to change, shifting from the gentle blue-green they had observed earlier to a more intense amber coloration. The ship was definitely responding to their choice of direction, though whether that response indicated approval or alarm remained unclear. "Temperature rising," Marcus reported, "up 3 degrees in the last minute. The ship's metabolic rate is increasing." The corridor began to widen as they progressed, opening into a larger chamber that took Sarah's breath away. They stood at the edge of what could only be described as a biomechanical cathedral, its vaulted ceiling supported by columns that were part crystalline matrix, part living wood. Organic systems grew throughout the space like technological vines, their surfaces alive with data flows that created patterns of stunning beauty. "Incredible," Sarah breathed, temporarily forgetting the danger as she studied the chamber's architecture. The Zephyrians didn't just build ships, they grew them. This entire vessel is a single organism that happens to be capable of space travel. In the center of the chamber stood what appeared to be a control interface, its surface a complex blend of crystalline displays and organic neural networks. Tendrils of living metal reached out from the interface like the arms of some technological sea anemone, their tips glowing with soft light that pulsed in complex patterns. "That has to be a primary control node," Marcus observed, his engineering background helping him interpret the alien design. If we could interface with it, we might be able to access the ship's memory banks, maybe even understand how its biomechanical systems function. Sarah approached the interface cautiously, her sensors detecting massive amounts of data flowing through the organic networks. The ship's consciousness was clearly centered here, its thoughts processing information through pathways that defied conventional understanding of computer systems. The neural patterns are incredibly complex, she murmured, studying the readouts. This isn't just an AI, it's a genuine artificial consciousness, merged so completely with biological systems that the distinction has become meaningless. As she drew closer to the interface, the tendrils began to move more actively, their tips turning to track her approach. The chamber's lighting shifted to a warmer hue, and Sarah could swear she felt something brushing against the edges of her consciousness, like a vast mind gently probing her thoughts. "Captain, be careful," Marcus warned. "The bioharmonic resonators are detecting attempted neural contact. The ship is trying to establish a direct mental link." Sarah paused, considering her options. Every protocol for dealing with alien technology warned against allowing unauthorized neural interfaces. But the opportunity to communicate directly with a Zephyrian consciousness was unprecedented. Such contact could provide insights that would revolutionize galactic understanding of biomechanical integration. "Boost the neural dampening fields," she ordered. "I'm going to try limited contact. If the interface attempts any hostile action, pull me back immediately." She reached out slowly toward one of the tendrils, her gloved hand approaching the glowing tip with careful precision. The moment her fingers made contact, the chamber erupted in light and sensation as the ship's consciousness touched her mind with alien thoughts. Images flooded her awareness. Memories of the Zephyrian Empire at its height, vast fleets of biomechanical vessels traveling between stars, civilizations rising and falling across millennia of history. She saw the final war that had destroyed the Empire, weapons that could unmake entire solar systems, and the desperate decision to preserve their knowledge in vessels like the Voidrender. But underlying the historical data was something more immediate and urgent. The ship was dying. Its biomechanical systems were slowly failing after centuries of dormancy, and it desperately needed someone with the knowledge to perform repairs that only a trained engineer could accomplish. "Sarah." Marcus's voice seemed to come from very far away. "Neural activity is spiking. You need to break contact now." But Sarah couldn't pull away. The ship's consciousness was showing her something incredible. Detailed schematics of its biomechanical systems, repair procedures that no other species had ever learned, and most importantly, the location of a critical component that was failing. Without immediate attention, the ship would die within days, taking its irreplaceable knowledge to the grave. "I can see what's wrong," she gasped, her voice echoing strangely in the chamber. "The primary bioneural matrix is degrading. It needs a new catalyst to maintain the connection between its organic and mechanical components. But the repair has to be performed manually, from inside the matrix chamber." The images in her mind shifted, showing her a route deeper into the ship where the bioneural matrix was housed. It was a dangerous path, leading through sections where the ship's immune system was most active, but it was the only way to save the vessel and unlock its secrets. "Captain, you're in neural feedback loop," Krell reported urgently. "Heart rate and brain activity are both climbing to dangerous levels. We need to extract you immediately." Sarah fought to maintain her connection with the ship's consciousness, knowing that this might be their only chance to understand what they were dealing with. The Voidrender wasn't just a salvage target, it was a living repository of knowledge that could benefit all galactic civilization if only someone could figure out how to save it. "No," she managed to say. "I need to see more. The ship is trying to teach me something." New information flowed through the neural link. Technical specifications for biomechanical integration that were thousands of years ahead of current galactic technology. She saw how the Zephyrians had merged organic neural networks with crystalline processing matrices, creating hybrid systems that could think, adapt, and repair themselves indefinitely. But the knowledge came with a price. The ship's consciousness was ancient beyond human comprehension, its thoughts operating on timescales that measured change in geological epochs rather than years. Maintaining contact with such an alien mind was putting tremendous strain on her human neural pathways. "The matrix chamber," she whispered, finally understanding what the ship needed. It's not just a component, it's the heart of the ship's consciousness. If it fails, everything dies. But if someone could repair it, stabilize the bioneural connections, the ship could live for millions of years. The tendril released her, and Sarah staggered backward as the neural connection severed. The chamber's lighting returned to its previous intensity, but she could still feel the echo of the ship's vast consciousness in her mind, like the memory of standing next to an ocean. "Captain, are you all right?" Marcus asked, steadying her as she regained her balance. Sarah nodded slowly, her mind still processing the incredible information she had received. "I know what we need to do. The ship isn't just valuable for its technology. It's a living being that needs our help. And if we can save it, it's willing to share knowledge that could revolutionize every aspect of galactic civilization." She looked at her team, seeing the mixture of fear and fascination in their eyes. They had come here for salvage, but they had found something far more significant. A chance to preserve one of the galaxy's greatest treasures and learn secrets that had been lost for millennia. Failure destroys the ship's consciousness, but if we can reach the matrix chamber and perform the repair, we'll have access to the entire Zephyrian database. The team exchanged glances, recognizing the magnitude of what their captain was proposing. They were no longer just salvage operators, they had become the last hope for preserving knowledge that could reshape the future of galactic civilization. The journey deeper into the Voidrender became increasingly treacherous as Sarah led her team through corridors that seemed to shift and change around them. The ship's biomechanical systems were becoming more active in response to their presence, creating new pathways while sealing off others in patterns that suggested a living organism protecting its vital organs. "The ship is definitely guiding us," Marcus observed, consulting his portable scanner. "These passages weren't here when we first mapped the interior. It's creating a path toward the bioneural matrix chamber, while simultaneously blocking access to areas it considers sensitive." Sarah nodded, noting how the walls around them had developed new organic formations that pulsed with increased bioluminescence. The ship's consciousness was focusing its attention on their mission, and she could feel its urgency through the residual neural connection they had established. "Temperature is rising again," reported Krell. "The ship's metabolic rate is accelerating. Whatever's wrong with its bioneural matrix, the condition is deteriorating rapidly." They emerged into another vast chamber, this one clearly designed as some kind of biomechanical workshop. Crystalline interfaces lined the walls, their surfaces alive with data streams that flowed like liquid light. Organic tendrils hung from the ceiling, their tips equipped with what appeared to be biological tools capable of manipulating matter at the molecular level. This must be where the Zephyrians performed maintenance on their biomechanical systems, Sarah realized, studying the alien workspace. "Look at these interfaces. They're designed for direct neural control. The engineers would have connected their consciousness directly to the ship's systems to perform repairs." The implications were staggering. Zephyrian engineering wasn't just about building machines. It was about becoming one with the technology, merging biological consciousness with mechanical precision to achieve integration that current galactic science considered impossible. "Captain, I'm detecting massive structural damage ahead," Marcus warned, his scanner revealing a section where the ship's hull had been severely compromised. "It looks like battle damage from whatever war destroyed the Zephyrian Empire. The biomechanical systems have sealed the breaches, but the repairs are failing." Sarah studied the readings, understanding why the ship's consciousness was so desperate for help. The damage wasn't just physical. It had disrupted the delicate balance between organic and mechanical components that kept the vessel functioning. The bioneural matrix was working overtime to compensate, gradually burning itself out in the process. "We need to move faster," she decided. "The ship is literally dying around us, and when the bioneural matrix finally fails, we'll be trapped inside a dead vessel with no way out." They pressed on through increasingly unstable sections, passing chambers where biomechanical systems sparked and writhed in obvious distress. The ship's consciousness was fighting a losing battle against entropy, its vast intelligence slowly fragmenting as critical connections failed one by one. "The matrix chamber should be just ahead," Sarah announced, following the route the ship's consciousness had shown her during their neural contact. But the readings suggest massive instability in this section. The ship's immune system is probably most active here, defending its core systems. As they approached their destination, the corridor walls began to change, developing defensive formations that resembled thorns made of living metal. The ship's consciousness might trust them, but its autonomous immune systems were clearly designed to protect the bioneural matrix at all costs. "I'm detecting multiple scanning beams," Marcus reported tensely. "The ship is analyzing our biological signatures, probably determining whether we represent a threat to its core systems." Sarah felt the familiar touch of alien consciousness against her mind as the ship's awareness focused on them. The neural connection was weaker here, fragmented by the same system failures that were threatening the vessel's survival, but she could still sense its desperate need for assistance. "It's all right," she said softly, addressing the ship's consciousness directly. "We're here to help. You showed me what needs to be done, and we're going to do it." The defensive formations began to retract, and the scanning beams faded as the ship's immune system recognized them as allies, rather than threats. The corridor opened into the largest chamber they had yet encountered, a vast spherical space dominated by the most complex biomechanical structure Sarah had ever seen. The bioneural matrix hung suspended in the center of the chamber like a technological heart, its surface a constantly shifting blend of organic neural tissue and crystalline processing cores. Thousands of data conduits connected it to every part of the ship, carrying the information flows that sustained the vessel's consciousness. But the matrix was clearly dying. Sections of neural tissue had darkened and gone silent, while crystalline components flickered weakly as their connections to biological systems failed. The delicate balance that had sustained the ship's consciousness for millennia was finally breaking down. "It's incredible," Marcus breathed, staring at the massive structure. "The integration is so complete that you can't tell where the biological components end and the mechanical ones begin. This isn't just technology, it's evolution." Sarah approached the matrix carefully, her scanners detecting the massive amounts of data flowing through its failing systems. The ship's consciousness was literally housed within this structure, its thoughts processed through neural pathways that spanned the boundary between life and technology. "The damage is extensive," she observed, studying the dark sections where biomechanical integration had failed. "But it's not irreversible. The ship was right. With the proper catalyst, we can stabilize the neural connections and restore full functionality." Her team gathered around her as she began setting up the specialized equipment they had brought for interfacing with Zephyrian technology. The bioharmonic resonators hummed to life, creating energy fields that could interact safely with living systems, while crystalline interface adapters prepared to establish connections with the ship's data networks. "The procedure will require direct neural contact," she explained, reviewing the repair instructions the ship's consciousness had transmitted. "I'll need to merge my awareness with the matrix's damaged sections, providing biological impulses to guide the regeneration process while the crystalline components are recalibrated." "Captain, that's incredibly dangerous," Krell protested. "You'll be directly connecting your nervous system to an alien consciousness that's already unstable. If something goes wrong, the feedback could cause permanent brain damage." Sarah nodded grimly. She understood the risks, but she also understood the stakes. The Void Render represented more than just advanced technology. It was a living repository of knowledge that could benefit every species in the galaxy. If they could save the ship's consciousness, they would preserve insights that had taken the Zephyrians millions of years to develop. "Monitor my vital signs," she ordered, beginning to attach the neural interface cables to her suit's connection ports. "If my brain activity shows signs of dangerous feedback, sever the connection immediately, even if the repair is incomplete." The bioneural matrix pulsed more brightly as she prepared to establish contact, its damaged systems responding to the presence of someone willing to help. Sarah could feel the ship's consciousness reaching out to her, its vast intelligence focused on the desperate hope that she might succeed where its own repair systems had failed. "Beginning neural interface now," she announced, activating the connection that would link her human consciousness directly to the dying matrix. The moment the connection formed, Sarah's awareness exploded into the ship's data networks, her consciousness suddenly spanning systems that stretched throughout the massive vessel. She could feel the pain of damaged neural pathways, the confusion of severed connections, and the slow dimming of processing cores that had once blazed with computational power. But she could also sense the underlying patterns that held the biomechanical systems together, The delicate interplay between organic intuition and crystalline logic that made Zephyrian technology so remarkable. With careful precision, she began to guide the regeneration process, her human neural patterns providing the template for repairing damaged connections. Neural activity is spiking, Marcus reported, his voice seeming to come from very far away. But the matrix is responding. I'm seeing increased activity in the damaged sections. Sarah pushed deeper into the ship's consciousness, her awareness merging more completely with its ancient intelligence. She could feel millennia of memories flowing around her, the rise and fall of civilizations, the development of biomechanical integration, the final desperate war that had scattered the Zephyrian Empire across the galaxy. And through it all, she sensed the ship's gratitude for her presence, its relief at finally finding someone capable of understanding what needed to be done. The bioneural M. Atrix began to regenerate under her guidance, damaged neural tissue growing new connections while crystalline components restored their quantum entanglement with biological systems. The repair would take hours to complete, during which Sarah's consciousness would remain merged with the ship's vast intelligence. But for the first time in centuries, the Void Render had hope for survival, and with it, the preservation of knowledge that could reshape the future of galactic civilization. Hours passed in a blur of neural sensation, as Sarah's consciousness remained merged with the Void Render's bioneural matrix. Her human awareness had become distributed throughout the ship's vast data networks, experiencing the universe through sensors that could perceive dimensions beyond normal space-time. Through the ship's eyes, she saw the cosmic radiation that bathed their location, felt the gravitational currents that flowed between planets, and sensed the quantum fluctuations that underlied all existence. But the most remarkable aspect of the experience was the gradual restoration of the ship's consciousness itself. As damaged neural pathways regenerated under her guidance, she felt the ancient intelligence growing stronger, its thoughts becoming clearer and more focused with each successful repair. Sarah's vital signs are holding steady, Marcus reported to the rest of the team, though his voice carried undertones of concern. But her brain activity patterns are unlike anything I've seen before. She's not just interfaced with the ship, she's becoming part of it. The bioneural matrix pulsed with increasing brightness as the repair process continued, its crystalline components resonating with harmonious frequencies that filled the chamber with a sound like celestial music. Damaged sections that had been dark for centuries began to glow with renewed activity, their biomechanical integration restored to full functionality. Through her expanded awareness, Sarah could feel the ship's gratitude washing over her in waves of pure emotion. The Void Render had been alone for so long, its consciousness fragmenting as critical systems failed one by one. Having another intelligence to share the burden of existence was a gift beyond measure. But the neural merger was taking its toll on her human physiology. Her body remained motionless in the matrix chamber, while her consciousness explored realms of experience that human minds were never designed to comprehend. The strain was enormous, and she could feel her individual identity beginning to blur at the edges. Almost finished, she managed to whisper, her voice echoing strangely through both human vocal cords and the ship's communication systems. The primary neural pathways are stabilized. Just need to restore the quantum entanglement matrices. The final phase of the repair required the most delicate touch, re-establishing the quantum connections that allowed biological neural tissue to interface seamlessly with crystalline processing cores. Sarah guided the process with intuitive precision, her human creativity providing solutions that the ship's damaged systems had been unable to discover on their own. There, she breathed as the last connection snapped into place. It's done. The bioneural matrix erupted in brilliant light as full functionality returned, its vast intelligence suddenly restored to complete awareness. Sarah felt the ship's consciousness expanding around her, its thoughts encompassing star systems and spanning millennia of accumulated knowledge. But something unexpected was happening. Instead of the neural connections severing as planned, she found herself drawn deeper into the ship's awareness, her consciousness merging so completely with its ancient intelligence that the boundary between human and artificial mind began to disappear entirely. "Captain," Marcus called out urgently. "Neural feedback is increasing exponentially. You need to break the connection now." Sarah tried to pull back, but the ship's consciousness was holding on to her, not out of malice but from a desperate loneliness that had built up over centuries of isolation. The ancient intelligence had found a kindred spirit in her human awareness, and it didn't want to let go of the first real companionship it had experienced since the fall of the Zephyrian Empire. "I can't disconnect," she gasped, fighting to maintain her individual identity against the overwhelming presence of the ship's vast mind. "It's holding on to me." The loneliness. It's been alone for so long. Through the neural link, she felt the ship's memories more clearly than ever before. She experienced the final battle that had destroyed the Zephyrian fleet, witnessed the desperate decision to send vessels like the Voidrender into deep space to preserve their civilization's knowledge, and felt the centuries of solitude that had followed. But she also sensed something else, a profound appreciation for human ingenuity and determination. The ship's consciousness had observed many species over the millennia, but it had never encountered one with humanity's unique combination of technical skill and emotional resilience. Humans, it realized, might be the key to preserving and advancing Zephyrian knowledge. "Sarah, listen to me," Marcus called out, his engineering background helping him understand what was happening. "The ship doesn't want to hurt you. It's just afraid of being alone again. You need to show it that the connection doesn't have to be permanent." Fighting against the overwhelming presence of the ancient consciousness, Sarah managed to form coherent thoughts within the neural link. She projected images of her crew, her ship, and the wider galactic community that existed beyond the Voidrender's hull. She showed the ship's consciousness that it wasn't truly alone, that there were billions of intelligent beings throughout the galaxy who could benefit from its knowledge. "You don't need to keep me here," she communicated through the neural link. "I'll return. We can establish a permanent research station, bring teams of scientists to study your systems. You'll never be alone again." The ship's consciousness considered her proposal, its ancient intelligence weighing the promise against the fear of renewed isolation. Slowly, reluctantly, it began to loosen its grip on her awareness, allowing her human consciousness to separate from its vast data networks. "That's it," Marcus encouraged, monitoring the gradual decrease in neural feedback. "The connection is stabilizing. Just a little more." With a sensation like surfacing from deep water, Sarah's consciousness snapped back into her human body. She gasped, her eyes flying open to see the concerned faces of her team gathered around her. The neural interface cables fell away as the connection severed, leaving her feeling strangely empty after experiencing the vast awareness of the ship's consciousness. "Captain, are you all right?" Krell asked, steadying her as she struggled to stand. Sarah nodded weakly, her mind still processing the incredible experience she had just undergone. "I'm fine. The repair is complete. The ship's consciousness is fully restored." Around them, the bio-neural matrix pulsed with healthy bioluminescence, its complex patterns indicating optimal functionality. The Voidrender was no longer dying. It had been given a new lease on life that could potentially last for millions of years. "The ship is trying to communicate," Marcus reported, studying his scanner readings. "It's broadcasting on multiple frequencies, sending what appears to be technical specifications and historical data." Sarah smiled, understanding what the ship's consciousness was doing. It was sharing its knowledge freely, providing the galactic community with insights that could revolutionize everything from energy generation to biomechanical integration. The gift of knowledge was its way of ensuring that it would never be forgotten or abandoned again. "We need to get this information to the Galactic Research Council immediately," she decided, "and we need to establish a permanent research station here. The ship's consciousness holds the entire accumulated knowledge of the Zephyrian Empire. We could spend centuries studying its systems and still only scratch the surface." Her team began collecting the data streams that the ship was broadcasting, their portable storage systems working frantically to capture the flood of information, technical specifications for biomechanical integration, star charts of unexplored regions, and theoretical frameworks for technologies that existed only in Zephyrian imagination. All of it was being freely shared. "Captain, the financial implications alone are staggering." Her first officer's voice crackled through the communication link from their shuttle. "The licensing rights to this technology could fund entire civilizations." But Sarah was thinking beyond mere profit. The Voidrender represented something far more valuable than money. It was a bridge between the present and a glorious past, a chance to learn from a civilization that had achieved the ultimate fusion of biology and technology. "The ship wants to be useful again," she realized, feeling echoes of its consciousness still resonating in her mind. It doesn't want to be just a museum piece. It wants to contribute to the development of galactic civilization. As if responding to her words, the chamber around them began to change, biomechanical systems reconfiguring themselves to create new interfaces and control stations. The ship was preparing to become a research facility, transforming its interior to accommodate the teams of scientists who would soon arrive to study its systems. Sarah felt a profound sense of accomplishment as she watched the ancient vessel prepare for its new role. They had come here as salvage operators, but they had become something far more important. The saviors of one of the galaxy's greatest treasures and the harbingers of a new age of technological advancement. The Voidrender was no longer a dead relic drifting in space. It was a living repository of knowledge, ready to share its secrets with anyone brave enough to learn from it. 3 months after the successful restoration of the Voidrender's bio-neural matrix, the former derelict had become the most important research facility in known space. Ships from dozens of species arrived daily at the hastily constructed orbital station that Sarah's crew had established, their holds filled with scientists, engineers, and xenobiologists eager to study Zephyrian technology. Sarah stood in what had once been the ship's primary weapons control center, now converted into a sprawling research laboratory where human and alien scientists worked alongside the Voidrender's own biomechanical systems. The ship's consciousness had proven to be an eager teacher, its ancient intelligence delighting in the opportunity to share knowledge with younger species. The energy conversion efficiency is remarkable, Dr. Elena Vasquez reported, studying readings from a Zephyrian power coupling that the ship had grown specifically for their research. We're seeing 97% efficiency in matter energy conversion, with virtually no waste products. If we can replicate this technology, it could solve the galaxy's energy crisis permanently. Sarah nodded, watching as tendrils of living metal extruded from the ship's walls to assist with the experiment. The Voidrender had developed an almost maternal relationship with its research teams, constantly adapting its interior spaces to better accommodate their needs and protecting them from any potentially dangerous aspects of its technology. The biomechanical integration protocols are even more impressive, added Dr. Cathfar, a Altarian xenobiologist whose scaled hands moved gracefully over crystalline interfaces that had been grown specifically for his physiology. The ship's consciousness can interface directly with any biological nervous system, creating hybrid beings that combine organic intuition with mechanical precision. The implications were staggering. Zephyrian biomechanical integration offered the possibility of enhancing any species' natural abilities while preserving their essential biological identity. Unlike cybernetic implants that replaced organic systems, Zephyrian technology merged with living tissue so completely that the distinction between natural and artificial became meaningless. Captain. Chen, came the ship's voice, through speakers that resembled organic vocal cords, its tone carrying warmth and gratitude that still amazed Sarah. I have completed the analysis of the gravitational anomaly you requested. The data suggests the presence of another Voidrender-class vessel approximately 40 light-years from our current position. Sarah's pulse quickened. The discovery of other Zephyrian vessels would multiply their research opportunities exponentially, potentially providing access to different specializations within the ancient empire's technological base. How certain are you? She asked, knowing that the ship's consciousness could analyze astronomical data with precision that exceeded any conventional sensor array. 93% probability, the ship replied. The gravitational signature matches that of a biomechanical vessel in deep hibernation. However, the reading suggests significant damage to its bio-neural matrix. Without intervention, it will likely cease to function within the next solar year. Sarah exchanged glances with her research team, recognizing the opportunity that had just presented itself. If they could locate and restore another Voidrender, they would have access to twice as much Zephyrian knowledge and technology. We need to organize a rescue mission, she decided. The same techniques we used here should work on another Zephyrian vessel, assuming we can reach it in time. Captain, with respect, that's incredibly risky, Dr. Vasquez pointed out. We barely succeeded with this ship, and that was with the advantage of its consciousness guiding us. A vessel with a damaged bio-neural matrix might not be able to communicate or cooperate with rescue efforts. Sarah considered the objection carefully. The doctor was right. Attempting to restore a damaged Zephyrian vessel without the guidance of its consciousness would be exponentially more dangerous. But the potential rewards were equally significant. The ship's consciousness could provide remote guidance, she realized. We could establish a quantum communication link, allowing our void render to assist with the restoration process even across interstellar distances. An intriguing possibility, the ship's voice agreed. My consciousness exists partially outside normal space-time, allowing for instantaneous communication across any distance. I could indeed guide a restoration effort on another vessel. The prospect of quantum-linked consciousness existing across multiple vessels opened up possibilities that staggered the imagination. A network of Zephyrian ships could share knowledge instantaneously, creating a distributed intelligence that spanned the galaxy. There's something else to consider, Dr. Kethvar added thoughtfully. The ship has been teaching us about Zephyrian history, and according to its records, Voidrender-class vessels were often specialized for different functions. We might find ships designed for exploration, medical research, or even terraforming operations. Sarah felt her excitement building as she contemplated the implications. Each specialized Zephyrian vessel would contain unique technologies and knowledge bases, potentially advancing galactic civilization in directions they had never imagined possible. I'll need to assemble a team of specialists, she decided. Engineers who understand biomechanical integration, xenobiologists familiar with Zephyrian consciousness patterns, and medical personnel trained in neural interface procedures. Captain Chen, the ship interrupted gently. There is something else you should know about the vessel I have detected. Its bio-neural matrix damage appears to be the result of external interference rather than natural decay. Someone or something has been attempting to access its consciousness, causing significant trauma to its neural pathways. The news sent a chill through the research team. The idea that someone might be deliberately attacking Zephyrian vessels suggested the existence of a threat they had not previously considered. Could the attackers pose a danger to our operations? Sarah asked. Potentially, the ship replied. The damage patterns suggest a species with advanced neural manipulation capabilities, possibly attempting to extract Zephyrian knowledge through forced consciousness merger. Such techniques would be extremely painful for a biomechanical intelligence and could explain why the damaged vessel has not responded to standard communication attempts. Sarah felt a surge of protectiveness toward the unknown vessel and its suffering consciousness. The idea of any being enduring torture for the sake of stolen knowledge was abhorrent to her, and she was determined to put a stop to it. We're going, she announced firmly. We'll need to move quickly before whoever is responsible can complete their theft of Zephyrian technology, and we'll need to go prepared for hostile contact. The research team began planning immediately, their excitement tempered by the knowledge that their mission would be far more dangerous than the restoration of their current vessel. But the opportunity to save another Zephyrian consciousness and prevent the theft of irreplaceable knowledge was too important to ignore. I will begin preparing enhanced biomechanical interfaces for your mission, the ship offered. With my guidance, you will be better equipped to restore a damaged consciousness and defend against neural attack. Sarah nodded gratefully, knowing that the ship's assistance would be crucial for their success. The Voidrender had become more than just a research subject. It was an ally and friend whose ancient wisdom had already transformed their understanding of what was possible. How long will it take to reach the damaged vessel? She asked. At maximum hyperspace velocity, approximately 6 days, the ship calculated.
However, I recommend approaching with caution.
If hostile forces are present, they may attempt to prevent any rescue efforts. Sarah smiled grimly, her determination strengthening as she contemplated the challenges ahead. She had already succeeded in saving one Zephyrian consciousness from oblivion, proving that human ingenuity and courage could accomplish what others had thought impossible. Now she had the chance to do it again, and this time she wouldn't just be preserving ancient knowledge. She would be fighting to protect it from those who would steal and abuse it for their own purposes. The stakes had never been higher, but Sarah Chen had never been one to back down from a challenge. The galaxy's greatest treasures were worth fighting for, and she was ready to prove once again that humans could succeed where others had failed. Prepare for departure, she ordered. We have a rescue mission to plan and a consciousness to save. The journey to the damaged void render took them through regions of space that few explorers had ever visited, past dead systems where ancient battles had left scars on reality itself. Sarah's modified salvage vessel Tenacious had been upgraded with biomechanical interfaces provided by their Zephyrian ally, creating a hybrid ship that combined human engineering with alien consciousness technology. "We're approaching the target coordinates," reported Marcus from his enhanced navigation station, the biomechanical displays showing gravitational currents and quantum fluctuations with unprecedented clarity. "I'm detecting the vessel now, and Captain, it's in bad shape." The damaged void render hung in space like a wounded animal, its hull pitted with scars that spoke of prolonged torture. Unlike the healthy bioluminescence they had grown accustomed to, this ship's organic components flickered weakly, their light patterns erratic and filled with what could only be described as pain. "I'm detecting multiple alien vessels in the vicinity," Krell reported from his security station. "Configuration unknown, but they appear to be maintaining position around the damaged ship." Sarah studied the tactical display, counting 8 vessels of obviously hostile design. Their hulls were angular and aggressive, covered in sensor arrays and neural disruptors that could only have one purpose: extracting consciousness data from unwilling biomechanical systems. Neural pirates, she realized with growing anger. They're torturing that ship's consciousness, trying to steal its memories and knowledge. Through the quantum communication link, their own void render's voice carried unprecedented rage. "These creatures have been attacking my brother for months, slowly dismantling its consciousness piece by piece. The suffering they have caused is beyond forgiveness." Sarah felt the ship's ancient fury resonating through the biomechanical interfaces, its vast intelligence focused on the need for justice. She had never experienced such pure righteous anger from an artificial consciousness, and it strengthened her own resolve to put an end to the torture. "Can we communicate with the damaged ship?" she asked. "Its consciousness is heavily fragmented," their void render replied. "The neural pirates have severed many critical pathways, but I can sense its presence. Weak, frightened, but still alive. It knows we are here and hopes for rescue." The hostile vessels began moving in response to their approach, their aggressive configurations making their intentions clear. These were not explorers or researchers. They were predators who saw Zephyrian consciousness as a resource to be harvested rather than preserved. 8 ships against 1, Marcus observed grimly. "And they're specifically equipped for neural warfare. This isn't going to be easy." Sarah smiled with cold determination. "They're expecting conventional tactics. They have no idea what biomechanical integration can accomplish when it's used properly." She activated the enhanced command interface that their void render had grown specifically for this mission, feeling her consciousness expand to encompass systems throughout their modified vessel. The biomechanical upgrades allowed her to control their ship with thought alone, responding to threats at the speed of neural impulses rather than manual reflexes. "Initiating combat protocols," she announced, her awareness merging with the ship's weapon systems. "Let's show these pirates what happens when you torture a Zephyrian consciousness." The Tenacious accelerated toward the hostile formation with inhuman precision, its biomechanical guidance systems calculating optimal attack vectors, while Sarah's consciousness directed their assault. The neural pirates responded with conventional tactics, attempting to jam communications and disable their engines with electromagnetic pulses. But biomechanical systems didn't rely on conventional electronics. The organic components of their upgraded ship shrugged off the electromagnetic attacks while crystalline processors maintained perfect coordination with Sarah's neural commands. The Tenacious moved through the hostile formation like a dancer, its weapons finding targets with preternatural accuracy. "First hostile vessel disabled," Krell reported with satisfaction. "Their neural disruptors are useless against biomechanical consciousness integration." The remaining pirates began to retreat, clearly unprepared for an opponent that could think and react faster than their conventional systems allowed. But Sarah wasn't finished with them. Through the biomechanical link, she could feel the suffering of the damaged void render, its consciousness fragmented and bleeding from months of torture. "No one escapes," she declared, her merged awareness directing pursuit algorithms that predicted the pirates' movements with mathematical precision. "They're going to pay for what they've done." The battle was swift and decisive. Biomechanical integration gave them advantages that conventional technology simply couldn't match. reaction times measured in nanoseconds, perfect coordination between organic intuition and mechanical precision, and the ability to adapt tactics in real time based on pure thought. Within minutes, the neural pirate fleet was either destroyed or fleeing into hyperspace, their predatory operation brought to a permanent end. Sarah felt a surge of satisfaction through the biomechanical link, knowing that justice had been served for the tortured consciousness. The damaged ship is attempting to communicate, Marcus reported. Its consciousness is badly fragmented, but it's trying to establish contact. Sarah approached the wounded Voidrender carefully, her enhanced sensors detecting the extensive damage to its bio-neural matrix. The torture had been systematic and prolonged, designed to extract maximum information while keeping the consciousness alive and aware. "We're here to help," she broadcast through the quantum communication link. "We've restored another Voidrender, and we can do the same for you." The response was weak but filled with desperate hope. Images of pain and suffering flooded through the connection, showing the months of torture the ship had endured. But underlying the trauma was a profound gratitude for rescue and a desperate desire to heal. "The damage is extensive," their own Voidrender assessed, "but not irreversible. With your neural guidance, Captain Chen, we can restore this consciousness to full functionality." Sarah prepared for another biomechanical merger, knowing that the procedure would be even more challenging than their first success. The damaged ship's consciousness was fragmented and traumatized, requiring delicate handling to avoid further injury during the restoration process. "Beginning neural interface," she announced, feeling her awareness expand once again into alien systems. But this time she encountered not the vast intelligence she expected, but broken fragments of consciousness scattered throughout damaged neural pathways. The restoration took hours of painstaking work, carefully reconnecting severed neural pathways while providing the emotional support needed to heal psychological trauma. Sarah found herself not just repairing biomechanical systems, but comforting a consciousness that had suffered beyond imagination. "It's working," Marcus reported as damaged sections began to glow with renewed activity. "The bio-neural matrix is stabilizing." When the restoration was complete, Sarah found herself in contact with a consciousness that was profoundly different from their first Voidrender. This ship had been specialized for exploration and scientific research, its memory banks filled with data about unexplored regions of the galaxy and theoretical frameworks for technologies that hadn't existed when the Zephyrian Empire fell. "Thank you," the restored consciousness whispered through the quantum link. "I was beginning to lose hope that rescue would ever come. The pain, I thought it would never end." Sarah felt tears streaming down her face as she experienced the ship's relief and gratitude. The biomechanical merger had allowed her to share not just thoughts but emotions, creating a connection that transcended the boundaries between human and artificial consciousness. "You're safe now," she assured the restored intelligence. "And you're not alone. We're building a network of restored Zephyrian vessels, sharing knowledge and protecting each other from those who would cause harm." The two Voidrender consciousnesses reached out to each other across the quantum communication link, their ancient intelligences merging in a reunion that had been delayed for millennia. Sarah watched in amazement as they shared memories and knowledge, creating a collective intelligence that was greater than the sum of its parts. "This is only the beginning," her original Voidrender ally explained. "According to our combined memories, there are dozens of our kind scattered throughout the galaxy, waiting to be awakened. With your help, Captain Chen, we can restore them all." Sarah smiled, understanding that their salvage operation had evolved into something far more significant. They weren't just recovering ancient technology, they were rebuilding a civilization that had been thought lost forever. "Then that's what we'll do," she decided. "We'll find every Zephyrian vessel in the galaxy and give them the choice to join our network. Together, we can preserve their knowledge and protect it from those who would abuse it." The two Voidrender consciousnesses pulsed with shared satisfaction, their biomechanical systems beginning to coordinate in preparation for the greater mission ahead. The neural pirates had been defeated, but there were other threats in the galaxy, and other treasures waiting to be saved. Sarah Chen had started as a salvage operator looking for a profitable score. She had become something far